In case you haven't noticed, I really love doing these um, movie reviews. I don't know. I think it gives you a lot to think about. I started watching Siskel and Ebert when I was a kid. I might do a separate video on them because I really feel like there were several things in my life that caused me to desire to think harder. And they were definitely Siskel and Ebert were definitely one of them, one of those influences. They were awesome. But I'll save that for another time. Cannonball Run is the epitome of a movie that I did not want to see. It looked like from the commercials, this is a good example of how effective marketing can be. I still remember the marketing from that movie. And it's just commercials everywhere. And it just looked like it was some kind of take on Smokey and the Bandit. Burt Reynolds was in it. And I was just like, ugh. And so, but as part of the retrospective, I started watching it, and I remember being very surprised by the first 10 minutes because it was actually pretty humorous. And I realized over the course of the movie that it was getting a lot of laughs from me. I was really surprised. Now, I will say this. If it may not be that effective for someone younger than me, maybe even not that as good for someone older than me. I'm not sure. It is most of the budget. It was a very high budget comedy, and most of the budget was spent on cast, stunts, and cast, and it was the who's who of 70s, in I guess really after Cannonball Run, 80s actors and actresses. I mean, really, with one notable exception. There was a person missing, and that's Slim Pickens. Slim Pickens should have been in this movie. This was his kind of movie. He wasn't in it. I have no idea why he was not in it. He would have been perfect. If you haven't seen him, he's pretty funny, but wasn't in it. And now, speaking of the budget, Jerry Seinfeld one time said that comedy is something best done cheap. I think that would be my one critique of Cannonball Run. That although it was funny and although it was actually more interesting than I thought it would be, and I'll get to that in a minute, it kind of leaned on its budget sometimes, and I think that you know did not work in its favor. It wasn't a thoroughly entertaining film, but I will say, let me say this: the premise is based on a real race that was a protest of the quote unquote new 55 mile per hour limit law. And I don't remember what the actual locations were, but it was from one side of the country to the other. And you had a certain specs that your vehicle had to match. And I read a first person perspective of someone who was actually in this race. I don't even know if it was called the Cannonball Run, but a person that was in this race and talked about how they had cheated a little bit and did some things with their car design that was, helped them out a little bit. And they still didn't win, but you had a certain amount of time and I don't remember, it's like you couldn't get pulled over, couldn't get a certain amount of tickets or something. It was actually very interesting. And I thought it was a really good inspiration for a film. So that kind of makes the movie a little more interesting if you know that this was something that people actually tried. The movie itself is not actually like particular people that did this, or I don't even know that it was inspired by particular people, but it was inspired by the actual idea for the race and the actual race that did take place. I don't think anyone knows if this race is still going on, by the way, which kind of is an interesting story in and of itself. But that makes the movie, I think, a little more interesting. I gave it 3 stars, probably because it's just not something I'm personally all that into. But it was funny. It was surprising. It wasn't like there's a movie I'll be reviewing soon that I thought was exceptionally funny. So I'm not gonna like I wouldn't say I put it up there with movies that I just think are just hilarious. It's not quite there, but and it might just be that I had low expectations, and it wasn't hard for it to exceed those expectations. But I don't think so. I think actually it's a movie that there's a way I put it is this: if you're bored, you want to watch a movie, and this is available to you for free, this is totally worth your time. Totally worth your time. If it doesn't meet that criterion, you can't get it for free, or you're not that bored, you're actually have other things you can do. I'd pass on it. But if you meet that criterion, absolutely worth your time. All right.